Hello and welcome to Tobacco Road and Abroad. My name's Garrett Parsons, joined by Aiden Moore. And goddamn, somehow we're both already out of the fucking ACC tournament. Somehow. Somehow.
We gonna be okay, man.
We'll be okay.
We gonna be okay.
I mean, I will say, I don't think either of our teams really have much to worry about come Sunday,
Yeah.
outside of
Not gonna,
matchups.
not gonna lie, it's been a rough couple days since we last recorded, hasn't it, Garrett?
It has a lot's happened. Unfortunately, our friends down at Santa Clara were not able to pull it off against Gonzaga. That was heartbreaking. That game was close. It was wire to wire. We have had a lot of heartbreaks in the past couple days. Some good news, too. Some internet rumors, if you will, which we can get into later. But all I'm saying is Providence has a chance to make me very, very happy with the next head coaching hire with the rumors I've been seeing. But no.
Garrett's gonna be very happy if this comes through.
Garrett will be very happy. Other Providence fans are not happy. And normally how things go at Providence is Garrett says something on a fan forum. Everyone calls me an idiot. And then what Garrett said happens.
Right.
Garrett is right. And then they're like, well, technically, no. Yeah, maybe they should stop getting their basketball knowledge from the NBA. No hate. I love the NBA now, but you can't apply NBA roster logic to college.
Mm-hmm.
But without further ado, let's jump into it. So NC State lost today to Virginia. Honestly, that game was a lot of fun to watch. There's a family in Ipswich who's also from Raleigh, North Carolina, who's State fans, and their son was lifting in the gym. Saw I had the game on, and then between the set, we watched the last 5 minutes together while we took our rest. Mm-hmm. So that was a fun experience. Even though we didn't pull through, that was a fun experience in the gym.
Yeah,
that was fun. Now I will say I think NC State's now safely in. We are the only bubble team that I think has won a conference tournament game right now outside of Ohio State. But of all the teams that were, in danger, which we really weren't, when our legitimacy to make the tournament got called into question, we were the only one that took care of business that day. So I think it's fair to say we're safe. Now, as it comes to the Virginia game, I have never felt better about a loss before, outside of maybe the Sweet 16 or whichever was it was either Elite 8 or Sweet 16 loss to Kansas when I was 10, where we lost by 3 in overtime, where the buzzer beater rattled out. And I was like, damn, this team's going to be good next year. And they were. But the defensive woes that I've seen all year, the reasons for losses, the things with our defense that have schematically been wrong, we rectified tonight. We came up against a team who both times we've played them, we have not done a very good job of covering the three-point line. With the way Will Wade wants to play defense with this specific roster, this isn't the way he normally plays defense, but because of our lack of size on the inside with, one of our bigs being hurt, we play, we help on everything, we switch on everything, but that requires everyone else on the court who's not doing the switch or the help to be incredibly hyper aware of shooters on the perimeter. And this year they have not been very, very aware of that. But today, everything was, I don't think I saw a three that wasn't contested. That Virginia, a shot they took, that was not contested outside the arc, which I liked. And it bode well for us. And honestly, if it weren't for a few offensive possessions that went awry, I think we could have done it. My main thing that frustrated me with the game today was it was clear Virginia was not really given much up inside. And our weakest kind of, players that don't do well with contact were driving the ball. And we had open shooters on the perimeter. I'm not sitting here and saying we would have made every single one of those opportunities. But on at least 3 or 4 of them, when Trey Holloman or Terrence Arsenault were driving, we had Paul McNeil open or Darian Williams open. And like I said, even if we only made, so NC State was like 45% from the 3-point line today. Even if we only made 45% of those chances, we would have beaten Virginia by about 8. I went back and did the math. Even if we only made 30% of those, we would have beaten Virginia by about 5. It's there has to be better awareness on the offensive end. And I think just schematically, today Virginia did a great job of keeping Copeland from driving, because when Copeland gets driving, he has great vision. If he were the one driving there, that would have been game, set, match. And I think Ryan Odom knew that, and they did a good job of not allowing Quadir Copeland to get in positions to drive downhill, which I think that was a defensive masterclass by him right there, because that would have been curtains right there. But I will say I do feel a lot better. Our main defensive issues have been rectified. I am a little worried about size on the inside come the tournament, but from what I've noticed in March Madness, unless you're 2024 NC State or 2024 Purdue, it's really more about guard play than anything. Like, unless you have Zach Edey or TJ Burns on the inside, or if you're Creighton Ryan Kalkbrenner, who now plays for the shout-out Hornets. He's center for the Charlotte Hornets, 7'4" of that awkward boy. And unless you have like a character, I'll say it like this, unless you have a character like that on the inside, where they can use their size and more directions than one to take advantage of their matchups. It's really all about guard play. And NC State at times this season has been able to make up for their lack of size on the inside by having really big wings that are able to drive downhill. They're the height of a forward, and they've got the toughness of a forward, but they've got the athleticism of a guard. And where they really struggled is when they've not gotten that involved, or when teams have schemed that out, like Ryan Odom today at Virginia did today. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I actually am feeling really good. If we play defense like that in the tournament and chase opponents' guards off the 3-point line, I don't think we're going to go on like a deep like Final Four run, but I think we could win a few games and surprise a few teams if we continue playing defense like that. Shore some things up, take some better shots, not pass up open threes, because that did happen a few times, particularly freshman Matt Abel. He was incredibly hesitant on some threes in the first half. He did fine in the second half. He started taking them. Him and Paul McNeil got incredibly hot in the second half, which is what we went down 10. And then all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, we were back within striking distance of Virginia and kind of hung around that 5 to 7 point mark. But NC State right now is looking at the experts really can't, agree on this. I've seen anywhere from an 8 to an 11 seed, and this is gonna sound crazy. I'd prefer a 10 or an 11 seed. With the 1
seed, yeah.
Because the 8-9 game, I'm sorry, the 8-9 game, that's a fucking scam. I'm sorry, the 8-9 game, and then you have to play the one right after that. That's a fucking scam right there. That's a scam if I've ever seen one. Mm-hmm. It's really only worked out well for NC State once. Other than that, every time we've been in that 8-9 game, it's been brutal. So I like NC State if we're a 10 or an 11 seed, because it's like looking at let me look at the projected 2 and 3 seeds here. Projected March Madness seeds. Let's see, the projected, excuse me, March Madness seeds. Okay, no, I don't need. So right now, the projected 1 seeds are Duke, Michigan, Florida, and Arizona. The only 1 seed I would really feel comfortable with in NC State's region is Arizona, because they are essentially Houston from last year. They are abominable at shooting from 3. They are the best 2-point shooting team in the nation, and they take a lot of tough shots, like a lot of tough mid-ranges. As we saw with St. John's last year, that is not a recipe for success in this tournament. Mm-hmm. You have to be somewhat competent from beyond the arc. Yes, Houston got away with it last year, but that's because they played at a snail pace and could hit threes. Playing at a snail pace and only being able to hit twos, and don't get me wrong, their record and their resume speaks for itself. But that's not the recipe for success when, there's just something about the air in the tournament where, like, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong with your team.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this with Patino teams in the past. And I know Patino doesn't coach them, but this Patino style. But for me right now, NC State, I'm a lot more comfortable. Hell, even a 12, but it looks like all the 12s this year are going to mid-majors. Where does it have NC State on this? Currently, it has NC State playing Michigan State if they were to beat Villanova. Okay. Oh, I love this. Oh, my God. This isn't a freebie to the Sweet 16, but if this is anywhere accurate to where it's going to be, so ESPN currently has NC State projected in Buffalo, opening with Villanova. They suck. And after that, they'd play Michigan State. And Michigan State, I'm sorry, we haven't talked about them a lot on here. Talk about fraud alert. Talk about fraud alert. Now, Izzo always seems to have his boys find a way to win 1 or 2 games in March. So I'm not doubting that aspect. I think it's going to be a tough one. But I think as far as it goes, having State as a 10 seed playing Villanova and then immediately running into Michigan State, I don't mind that. I do not mind that at all. Now, after that, do I really want to run into what's it called? Do I really want to run into fucking Gonzaga? Maybe. They don't have a lot of size on the inside either, and they're not a very good shooting team. They get to the free throw line a lot, but honestly, the team I wouldn't want to play out of that side again would be SMU. And I know that's a crazy take, but as someone who sat there and watched that, anxiety, heart palpitation inducing game, don't get me wrong, that was, entertaining as hell, but I don't want to run into Boopy Miller and SMU again. I don't think we would in that scenario, but that's the one team on that side where I'm like, damn, don't want to see them again. Now, I would want to see Texas again. That was a good game. But like I said, NC State, I like where they're seated. I want to see them at around that 10 line. I want it because I'm not liking the 8-9 matchups that we were getting. Like, Utah State's fine, but then it was like, cool, you've got Michigan next. Cool, you've got Florida next. And now I'm just like, I don't know. That just seems like a scam. And I think the whole reason why these teams, and I think the committee, now this is just me spitballing. This could be complete bullshit, and I could be just missing the plot here. I think the reason why we're seeing Power 5 teams not getting the 11 and 12 seeds as much anymore is I think the committee's realized that's kind of a gift straight to the Sweet 16. Like, if you're these mid-tier teams in these Power 5 conferences, you're still as a mid-tier team, you're still pretty fucking dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times in these 11-6, 5-12 matchups, that 5 or 6 seed is a hot mid-major, is like the hottest mid-major, and that's, danger Will Robinson. That's not a good matchup for that mid-major team. Yeah. Like, we saw it in 2012 with NC State when they were a 12 seed. They got lined up with a San Diego State team who hadn't lost all year. But because they came out of the Mountain West, 5 was about as high as they could go. And that was, that was curtains from that started just due to the size disadvantage. There have been other times where, what's another one I can think of? I mean, the one year, Carolina was what? Were they 8 when they went to the Final Four, or were they an 11?
I want to say an 8.
Okay, that's a different one. But there have been times where there have been other ACC teams where they've been an 11, and it's kind of been like, it's basically been a free trip to the Sweet 16 or an Elite 8 for them. I mean, NC State in the Final Four run, They were helped by Oakland beating Kentucky, but that wasn't a very good Kentucky team. But when you give that 11 to 12 seed to a Power 4 team, you're kind of just gifting them. Like, and I'm not saying the 3 and the 4 seeds are a joke, but like, you've kind of given them an optimal path to the Sweet 16 there. Yeah. And that's just my college basketball conspiracy theory for the day. Not even conspiracy theory, but I think, like I said, this 10, 11 seed right now for NC State, I think that's our best option right now, because just 8-9 games are. But no, optimistic going into the tournament. What are your thoughts on Carolina going into the tournament?
Carolina had a tough loss recently to Clemson. They were down pretty bad, like 10 minutes left in the game. They actually 5 minutes left in the game, but I really liked this team's ability to kind of make it close in the end, and like they had legitimate chances to win this one, and the ball just didn't go their way. The lead was a little bit too big for UNC to come back from, but I'm very optimistic going into the tournament, but with Wilson being out, like this has been a very hot and cold team. Sometimes you see the UNC that played against NC State and Duke recently. That's not a good team. And then sometimes you get UNC versus Louisville in this run where they're firing on all cylinders, and like Henry Vassar and like Seth Trimble are really stepping up production and are doing well. So it's really just going to have to come down to placement for UNC. If I'm going to be like completely honest, I think maybe the ceiling for this UNC team is going to be like the Sweet 16.
Possibly, yeah.
I think Sweet 16 this year would be going past expectations that we have going in right now. Just with how inconsistent this team has been. There's been some high highs, and then there's been some very low lows, but it's just going to come down to placement. Looking at, I take like the bracket that ESPN gives with a grain of salt, just because it's really not accurate. It's accurate with seeding. It's never accurate with matchups, in my opinion.
Okay. I mean, even then, I take St. Mary's. That actually would be the big one. And I'm a WCC homer, and you know that, Aiden, but that would be, they wouldn't match us up with Miami. There's no shot.
Since we're talking about hypothetical matchups in this ESPN bracket, let me talk about Yale versus Arkansas. That's a interesting matchup, in my opinion. Just with the history of Yale going up against SEC teams at the 12 seed against an Arkansas. This Arkansas team's very good, but something about them Bulldogs. I'm majoring in pre-law and hooping, motherfucker.
Indeed.
But
yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't. I'm going to be honest. Like looking at like your matchup, I'm not liking the NC State Michigan State matchup. I know you might say like it could be a easy shot to the Sweet 16. I don't like that matchup for you guys.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, Michigan State is hot and cold. We could get hot Michigan State, or we could get Big Ten play Michigan State. There's
Michigan State when they're going up against non-conference opponents. Very good, very good. Michigan State when they're playing Minnesota. Not so good.
Not so good. Michigan State when they have to play 4 Big Ten opponents in a row. 4-game slide. But no. Other teams I'd like to talk about, just See, do we just want to talk about like just do we want to go into the bubble now and just kind of see, talk about certain conference tournaments, bubble where we see certain things like just narratives
Yeah.
that are in the media right now.
I mean, with how like we're already in the middle of conference play tournaments, so our next episode's probably just going to be a response to the seeding of everything. But like we can like my biggest uh look at the bubble is how the hell are in the Big 26? Why do we still have Auburn even sniffing this tournament right now?
Yeah, I don't know either. That's kind of, that's an odd question for me. It's just like I really don't see why. It's just not. I think it's SEC bias. Like, this could be a hot take. And going back to your thing about how you think the seating's accurate, but not the matchups with ESPN,
Mhm.
a lot of these ACC teams are on that 7, 8, 9, 10 line.
Mhm.
If these were SEC teams, they'd be falling all over themselves to give them 4 and 5 seeds. If NC State was an SEC team, they'd be like 6 seed.
Yeah.
UNC, 2 seed.
2 seed. I've seen enough.
Texas A&M, if they were an ACC team, they wouldn't even be projected in the field right now. They'd be
Yeah.
projected out.
Oh yeah.
Which I think they honestly might be out today after their loss. Just with that was fucking ugly.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna be completely honest, let me pull up what happened today. Speaking of hypothetical matchups, SEC tournament. Texas A&M got blown out by Oklahoma. I'm sorry, I think your season's done there, pal. Like that might just do it.
You better start speaking some NIT in a little bit.
Yeah, you were. God damn. They were. Hold on, excuse me. Let me see where they were ranked in their conference before I say something stupid. But they were top I think they were a top 6 seed. Top 6 in SEC tournament, and they lost first round. Essentially, their first round. Let's see. Where do they have Texas A&M slated? Texas A&M's currently on the 8-9 line. I think that's a little generous, if you ask me. Like, I think with their loss today, that's like you're definitely dropping to the 10 line in the manner that you lost.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other? Let's look at some bubble teams and see whether you're leaning in, leaning out. Even if there's some teams that you think are firm, that other people think are firmly in the field that you think are out. Is there any? Obviously, we started with Auburn, but are there any other particular teams you'd like to talk about that are like possibly in the bubble right now?
I really like the Santa Clara team. I know Gareth has kind of been putting me on to them, but very impressive run in the WCC. Unfortunately, they weren't able to close it out against Gonzaga. Like them. Miami of Ohio is interesting with their loss to UMass today, but it seems like the consensus is they're in. So I don't think they're going to be doing particularly well in this tournament. I know like the talk of like their strength of schedule, all that stuff. Like you play who you schedule, and I just expect if, let's say this is a culture shift in Miami basketball, I'd be interested to see who they're playing next year. Just because you can't hide behind a weak schedule anymore after this year.
Yeah. No, it's different if it's like St. Louis where you can't get anyone to play you. That's a little different, but we don't know that for sure.
Did we even know that Miami of Ohio was going to be that good this year?
No.
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 So like you're going to have a lot of bigger teams now. Maybe wanting to dip their toe a little bit. Like I'm not saying like the Dukes and like Kentuckies are going to want to play you, but there's definitely going to be some like mid-tier SEC and ACC teams that might want to shoot you an invite. And I think I
Yeah.
think I think maybe their strength of schedule might go up next year, but we're talking about this year right now. And you keep on saying like the St. Louis they try to schedule hard teams. Like I feel like that this scenario is just different because Miami of Ohio just had no street cred to their name this year.
Yeah, and
So
they kind of came out of nowhere.
they kind of came out of nowhere. Like even like maybe even they didn't expect to be this good this year or have this the type of run that they've had.
Yeah.
So because if I was a bottom tier basketball squad, I wouldn't go out of my way to like schedule these big games. But now that
Yeah.
you have a little bit of confidence behind your name, I expect you to start scheduling these bigger games next year.
I agree.
So it's just an
Didn't I?
interesting scenario, but 31-0, you can't knock it.
No, you cannot knock it at all. Um,
Like, I'm sorry. I know they have like the 276th toughest schedule. I'm sorry. You could have the 325th uh, toughest schedule, dead last. If you're 31-0, it's worth
beat
something.
beat who's in front of you.
Beat who's in front of you. And then we'll talk during the off season.
Yeah. Team. Here's a team that I want to know your opinion on. They started their conference tournament by beating kind of the trendy team. They know the team that was really trending in the right direction for a while. They weren't good. They would have needed to win the Big 12, but UCF started off winning against Cincinnati yesterday in overtime, and they lost in kind of blowout fashion today against Arizona. Where do you see them right now? Because this season they have a ranked win over Kansas. They have that blowout win over BYU that we saw. That BYU almost came back for a split second there.
Yeah.
But then they kind of went on a slide. They kind of had some what I would deem almost unacceptable losses. They lost to a barely 500 Baylor team at home, barely 500 Oklahoma State team at home. They lost to a West Virginia team that was pretty much out of the tournament at that point. They finished the season on a 3-game slide. Other questionable losses. They lost to West Virginia twice. They do have a ranked win over Texas Tech as well, but they do have 2 losses to Oklahoma State and some other just kind of real head scratchers, if you ask me.
Hmm. I mean, started off the season really strong, out of conference play, and this Big 12 conference is one of the toughest conferences in all of college basketball, in my opinion. And I think it's tougher than the ACC. I think it's tougher than the SEC, Big Ten. This is the basketball conference this year, in my opinion. So there are some head scratching losses, but there's also some really shining moments of this UCF team. I like where they are in the tournament right now, but the last 3 game slide is a little bit of a head scratcher. Even their win against Cincinnati, I think it's a little bit questionable by 1 point, especially with a blowout loss to Arizona the very next day. But um, I think just with the strength and depth of this conference, in my opinion, making it out in 7th place is an achievement in of itself, in my opinion. I think I have some Big 12 bias. I know we have some different disagreements on like, oh, the bottom half of the Big 12 is just not that impressive. I kind of disagree, but I can see where people come from. But this is the conference, in my opinion, just with how top heavy it is and the depth of the middle teams. I like a lot.
Yeah, and I like them as well. I actually have them in as well. I don't. I think I may have them in. And this is semantics at this point. I honestly would have them as like 11 or a 12 seed. I think 10 seeds a little high for them. But they took care of business. They have some pretty good wins this year, so I'll grant them and I'll put them in the same kind of category as TCU. I think they're in. There's some head scratchers in there, but there's really there's not too much to knock there, if you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a you know what? I'll change my mind on Texas A&M. I think they should be in. I mean, they did close out the season on a 4-game winning streak, but let me check the Carfax on this resume. Lost at Oklahoma State, lost to UCF, lost to SMU. Don't see a good win yet. No quad 1 wins yet that I see. They did win at Texas. That might be a quad 1 win. They won at Georgia. Okay, that might be one. They don't have any ranked wins this season. They do have a win over Kentucky at home, but there's not really. But we also know that the AP poll doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
But this Texas A&M team, they won at Texas. I think that's a big one. They won at Georgia by a fair amount, by about 15. They lost to Florida at home by 20. They lost to Vanderbilt at home by 13. They lost to Mizzou at home by 1. They won at Oklahoma. They lost to Texas at home. They lost to Arkansas at home by a lot, or at Arkansas, excuse me. And then obviously they had to blow out to Oklahoma today. I think they're in, but I think similar to UCF, I think the nine seed's a little high for them.
I think I have them out of this tournament. I am just not sold on them whatsoever. I mean, I'll say, looking at the entirety of their schedule, I don't see an impressive win in the first half of this season until like Texas, at Texas. That's a little questionable in my opinion. Throughout and granted, maybe I put more weight on non-conference play than I should, but just a very lackluster showing against Big 12 teams. You got to win against FSU. That's almost your most impressive win this entirety of the non-conference schedule. So, and after that, you start SEC play, you win against a LSU team, an Auburn team I'm not sold on whatsoever. An Oklahoma team that has given some people some issues. You lose to Tennessee. You beat Texas. Fine. That's my first, okay, really solid win. Like that a lot. Then South Carolina, Georgia wins. Then you go on a 4-game slide. That is ugly. You get a win against Ole Miss, which I don't know why midseason people were hyping up this team. This is not a good basketball team. That's not impressive in my book. Another
They
win
got
against
blown the fuck out by NC State.
Yeah, you get a good win against Oklahoma, then you lose to Arkansas, you lose to Texas, you beat Kentucky, then you beat LSU. I'm sorry, I'm not sold on this team whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm not either. You know what? The 8-9's perfect for them. You get the punishment of you get the scam. You get the scam. 8-9 are out.
Yep.
That's my 2. 8-9 are out. Looking back down our bubble, this team's been kind of right in the ship lately. Ohio State. What do you think about them? They're 8th in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
They've got wins over UCLA, and I know that doesn't seem like a big one, but UCLA does have 4 top 10 wins this year. They have a win at a ranked Wisconsin. They have a win at home against number 8 Purdue. They beat Indiana. They beat Iowa, another bubble team today, in the conference tournament. They did lose at Iowa pretty bad, though.
Yeah, I consider that even. They righted their wrongs today.
Or is it really going to come down to their matchup with Michigan tonight, whether you're in or out on them?
It comes down to it. It just depends how well they do. I'm not expecting them to win, but if you have a really good effort and a better showing than earlier this season, where you lose by 20 points to Michigan at home, and I think I'll give you a pass if you keep it close to with Michigan.
I will say they do have some good losses this year. They lost by 1 to UNC. They lost by 3 to number 10 Nebraska. And yes, I know losses don't count and help. But outside of Michigan, they've been right there with ranked teams home and away.
Mm-hmm.
Lost by 4 to Virginia. Lost by 6 at Michigan State. Like, they've been right there.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping it in the Big Ten. We'll take a look at, we'll go to the next team, Iowa, the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yeah.
Taking a look at their resume, they have some preseason wins. They have some early season wins over Xavier, the not so great Ole Miss team. They have a loss at Michigan State, a loss at Iowa State. They lost at Minnesota. They lost to Illinois. They lost at 5 Purdue, but they have wins at Indiana. They have a win against number 9 Nebraska. They lost at Nebraska, and then they've lost to Ohio State. So really not a whole lot of, big wins to hang their hat on. They're really kind of marquee wins here, I'd say, are UCLA, at Indiana, and Nebraska. Let me take a look at their metrics here. Iowa. Iowa is sitting at, excuse me, that's the wrong one. Here's the net rankings. Control F, Iowa. Iowa's sitting at 25th in the net. They're 4-8 in quad one. And yeah, quad one wins are great, but if I'm just looking at this resume, I'm trying to find that 4th quad one win looking at it, Aiden.
Yeah.
It's definitely not Maryland. Ohio State, maybe at home. No, that can't be it. At Indiana is definitely one.
Mm-hmm.
UCLA might be one. UCLA might be one as well.
Yeah.
Nebraska, I'm seeing 3 here. Like, I'm honestly not convinced. I may be out on Iowa. I may think Iowa. I think maybe Iowa's out here in my mind.
I like Iowa.
Which I know.
Like I like them, but they definitely do have some questionable losses.
I'm sorry, this may be crazy. I think Miami, who's sitting at 32nd, and I think Miami's got a better resume than Iowa. I'd even say I think Villanova and UCLA have a better resume than Iowa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just like,
they fulfill the criteria of what I call a good, not good, but good.
You did what you were supposed to do.
Yes. I'm not wowed by anything I see by Iowa, but I'm not offended by anything I see from Iowa, which is why I'm more impartial to them getting in the tournament.
Yeah. That may be like a last 4 in type scenario.
Like when it comes to bubble in my book, and I just want to tell people by what standard I go for, I'm very biased. I understand that. I understand I should have no say in who makes the tournament or who doesn't make the tournament. I go off of hype. And did you live up to the hype that you were promised on social media and stuff? I hear a lot coming from Auburn and Texas A&M, so I'm more harsh on them than in Iowa.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not offended by anything I see from Auburn. I mean, from Iowa. I'm not impressed. And by the standards that I would use, I think most teams on the bubble would not make the tournament, in my opinion. And we would have 10 open spots. that have to be occupied by somebody. So, disregarding my standards, they're an okay team. And I'm not going to be offended if they make the tournament. I'm not going to be offended if they miss the tournament.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay.
Looking at another team on the bubble. Well, let's go to our own conference here. Southern Methodist, SMU. They're sitting at 20-13. They're 11th in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull up their Carfax, their net stats. They're sitting at 37th in the net, one spot above the highest ranked net team to be left out. They're 4-9 in quad 1, 5-4 in quad 2. That's a little ugly, but they kept it clean in quad 3 and quad 4, which is, those are the losses that really can kill you. If you're in the tournament, it can knock you a seed line. If you're on the bubble, that can kind of knock you out.
Yeah.
Looking at SMU's resume, they have a win against Texas A&M. Solid. They have a win at Mississippi State. They have a home win against UNC. They won against Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, they've been kind of actually on a slide recently.
They've been on a major slide. I don't like this team from their wins. I just like their ability to be a thorn in the side of everyone.
I do like that as well.
But I don't know if that constitutes a good tournament team. I just think they're a good team that you don't want to face. You can get the win on them, but there's
it's
going
to cost you.
It's going to cost you. They're round one cannon fodder, in my opinion, if that makes sense. Where they're not the main character of the story, but they're the stormtrooper that is finally accurate one time and hits the main protagonist in the arm, and then for the rest of the episode, your protagonist has one arm and adds stakes to the rest of the tournament or episode, if that makes sense. That's the best way I can describe SMU. They're nameless antagonist that gets a good hit on the protagonist and creates stakes for the rest of the episode. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. For me, and since Aiden kind of gave his parameters, for me, in an average year, because I know and I'll get into my rant about the bubble being weak this year, and all like the hubbub I've seen about that. Generally, in a given year, my kind of at large, kind of guarantee, what I think you'll likely be in is you have to be around 500 in conference play, and if you're below 500 in conference play, you need to win the amount of conference tournament games that would get you to 500. Like NC State, UNC, they're fine. Like, yeah, first round loss would have sucked and likely dropped them to last 4 in for NC State. But they're they were 10-7 in the ACC, 11-7. Like, nothing bad. They were 10-8. Yeah, not bad. SMU, I would have liked to have seen them win 2 games in the ACC tournament. They only ended up winning 1, if I'm not mistaken. But that kind of puts them at around that, they're just below 500. Actually, no. Did they lost yesterday?
Yep.
They did the first day. Hold on. Let me check the Carfax. They won against Syracuse. That's not a win to write home about. Then they lost a close one to Louisville. Again,
and then Louisville had troubles going up against Miami. Point still stands.
Yeah. I think I'm actually out. I don't know, because you see, there are teams in other conferences where I feel like if we apply the same logic, I have them in. I don't like their play as of late. But if you look at them, a team that high has never been left out. I know it's by one spot, but there are 37 at-large spots, and they are 37th.
Whether you like to admit it or not, the bubble teams are just teams that are good in their conference, and your placement of them just depends on how you view the conference.
Yeah, or how the committee is going to view the conference.
Yeah. So like SMU, you're going to hear this a lot. I like the ACC. I think the ACC is a better conference than the SEC, so I have them in. But like, I'm not fighting to the death to put nameless Stormtrooper number 3 in the tournament.
I am, because the SEC gets to do it all the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
They put a 6-12 team in the NCAA tournament. Now, this team is the definition of wildly inconsistent. This team is the definition of Stormtrooper, the first Stormtrooper off the board in Craft. Stanford. 5 quad 1 wins. 5 quad 1 wins, but 4 quad 3 losses.
Yeah, no.
4.
I'm sorry. I can justify a lot from the ACC. I can't justify putting Stanford in.
You could almost justify Virginia Tech over Stanford.
They lost to You lost to UNLV, Seattle U.
Stanford did.
Yeah. That's not good. Now, granted, here's the thing: all these teams, like these past 2 teams, they have beaten UNC. So I understand. UNC is just an inconsistent team. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know where I should put a UNC, like a win against UNC.
Was it them or Cal that won their ACC SEC challenge? Was that Cal? That had to be Cal. I'm looking at their schedule right now. That had to be Cal.
Yeah.
Which Stanford for me, that they got to be out. Some final teams, just some final one final bubble team, and I'm curious. I'm honestly not sure where to put them. I think their net rating's a little disrespectful. But honestly, they only have 1 quad 1 win. But honestly, we've seen Power 4 teams get in with less. Seton Hall. They're sitting at 20-11. They have had 1 quad 1 win, but they've only had 5 opportunities because of how weak the Big East is. In quad 2, they're 6-4. Quad 3, they're 7-2. Quad 4, they're 6-0. Looking at their individual schedule for Seton Hall, we're pulling them up. They have a win over NC State as their first quad 1 win. Where is it? They have season sweep over Providence. Season sweep on Marquette. Not that really matters. Actually, I think NC State is their only quad 1 win. So actually, I'm out on Seton Hall. As much as I like them, they've played a lot of the top Big East teams very close. They lost in absolutely just brutal, sad story, sad song fashion to UConn twice. Same thing in their game against Villanova. Yeah. Same thing with St. John's. It's all just these terrible, gut-wrenching 1-2 possession losses. That team's going to win the NIT. If it's not Florida State, that team's going to win the NIT. Your NIT final, FSU versus Seton Hall, an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
That can be very stoppable sometimes, though, and can be very movable. But the people love them.
But funny, Seton Hall for me is not out. They have an opportunity to right the ship tonight at 5:30.
They do.
We're on to the Big East semifinals. They have St. John's in the Garden. St. John's has not been safe in the Garden this season. Providence has taken them down. In the Garden, Seton Hall has played them close. Shaheen Holloway, one of the few coaches holding on to that last vestige of Big East style basketball where you just fucking beat the team into submission. You play hard-nosed defense and you fucking whack them motherfuckers into submission. They've got NC State's Trey Parker. Their biggest scorer actually does come from NC State. His name's Trey Parker. He's a three-point shooter. But you know what? Give me Seton Hall to win the Big East tournament and make March Madness. You know what? Fuck it. I'm putting Seton Hall in. Seton Hall's in for me, baby. Seton Hall's in. They play everyone tough. They just need things to go their way. They've had a lot of games where the ball has just not bounced their way. Give me Seton Hall. Even if they beat St. John's and don't win it all, give me Seton Hall. I'm taking them in the tournament.
You've convinced me. I mean, I like their performance early in the season, have some really solid wins. I mean, a very close loss to USC. Kind of like smudges their other round pretty good non-conference play. It's just like the Big East where things get a little tricky. And it really just kind of boils down to, what do you think of the Big East?
I will say
this is a very weak Big East this year, mind you, in my opinion. Not the best, not the worst. Very mid. So
that loss to DePaul at home is a little ugly.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna keep it a buck. As a
Same
DePaul
thing with the loss
stan,
at home to Butler. The
as a
home loss to
DePaul
Butler.
stan, that's not good.
As a DePaul stand, that's not good. As
Yes.
someone who likes Butler, I don't hate Butler. That's something I can say about very few Big East teams is I'm impartial towards Butler.
Yeah.
And they lost to Butler at home by double digits. That's something you can't have. I think in order to get in, they have to beat St. John's, which my prediction is they will, and then they'll get in.
Yes.
Now,
Big East championship gonna be Seton Hall versus Georgetown. Screw it. Georgetown also gets the upset against UConn.
it almost happened twice this season.
Yep.
That's the 1-2 seed I'd be okay with NC State playing. With how just like UConn, in the games I've seen them look discombobulated. How do you almost lose to Providence twice?
Yeah.
Your ass was down 20. And yeah, it did take it. It was a comeback, but it did take an epic collapse.
Yes. People don't like saying, everyone loves a good comeback story. People don't like talking about how you got in that situation, though.
Yeah. That might be the quote of the year, Aiden. Everyone loves a good comeback, but people often overlook how you got there.
Yeah. Now, for good or for bad. I mean, like, hey, a good comeback is a good comeback. But we often are very silent about how we got there.
It often gets overlooked because you won.
Yeah. Which is important. Listen, I'm the comeback kid. Gareth will tell you this. Any opportunity where I've been down, I've always come back. But don't forget, I have been down before. I have taken
we
these
got
losses. We got there.
We've gotten
we
there.
have hit rock bottom before. But that's a story for another day.
It is. Looking at what the fuck is going on in the American. Hold on. I'm a little confused here.
Hold up.
How did USF win in the American? How did USF win in the American Conference Tournament? And then I don't see them again. What happened? Hold
let's take
on.
a little break for a moment, and then
Yeah.
we can jump back in.
All right. Well, I found out where South Florida was. Their conference tournament's just set up weirdly, and they have an automatic bye to the semifinals. So found them. I know. I'm trying to think of other bubble teams that there could possibly be that would cause some interest or intrigue. Like I know right now the Mountain West is looking like a one bid league unless Utah State somehow doesn't win it. I'm looking at some other, just kind of scrolling through these teams. VCU. This is the last one I'll bring up. VCU. How are you feeling about them?
Let me pull them up.
VCU is 2-5 in quad 1, 3-2 in quad 2, 8-0 in quad 3, 11-0 in quad 4.
Yeah. Where is it?
They're 24-7.
Mm-hmm.
They've got wins over South Florida and Virginia Tech. Let me see what else.
There we go. For some reason, they weren't showing up on the A10. I got the VCU now.
They've swept Dayton.
Yeah. Got swept by St. Louis. Pretty solid non-conference wins with like Virginia Tech, which is pretty good by A10 standards. Lost to New Mexico. Lost to NC State. Lost to Utah State.
Although that New Mexico team's kind of a little. Let me check the Carfax. They're kind of nice. They're also in contention. They're also on that bubble with San Diego State.
Yeah.
So how about these Mountain West bubble teams, including VCU? Like we can talk about them in a group of 3.
Yeah. Let me,
For me,
like, I'm more impressed with New Mexico. They've had a little bit of a slide as of late, but I still think they're a really solid basketball team. Good win against Santa Clara, VCU, and in conference play, like they've done well enough in my opinion. Not doing as well in conference play as I would like, but I think New Mexico, in my opinion, should be an N.
I would agree. New Mexico, and let me look at San Diego State's resume really quickly, but I would take New Mexico as an at-large.
Are they still? They're playing right now against San Jose State, and it looks like they're going to win.
That's good. San Diego State, looking at them here, they got a good win over Boise State. They won at New Mexico. Or no, they beat New Mexico at home. They have a win over Utah State. And they don't know who they're playing yet tonight. All right, let's take a look at the net rankings here, just to get a general idea. You know what? I'll take them.
Mm-hmm. I'll take San Jose State. I'll take those two Mountain West teams over VCU right now.
I'll take them over VCU, and I might take them over Ohio State unless Ohio State beats Michigan.
Yeah.
I might even take them over St. Mary's right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's all the bubble talk we have. I think that's all the bubble talk I've got. But I will talk about this. I'm seeing a lot of discourse online about this being a weak bubble. And, it may be a weak bubble. and I've been seeing, and I lots of respect for Ryan Hammer, and I agree with most things he says, but there's some things I disagree with. Ryan Hammer and Blue Blood Hoops podcast and a lot of his followers are saying that they should just let a bunch of mid-major teams in place of the current bubble teams, because they're like, it doesn't seem like the current bubble teams really want to be there because they feel like it feels like they're already in. And I get that sentiment. And don't get me wrong, I yearn for the days where we had mid-majors as high as the 4, the 5, even the 1. We were going to get a 1 seed Dayton in 2020, the 1 seed Wichita State Shockers. I yearn for those days.
Yeah.
But what they are proposing is an overcorrection. And with the amount of bitching and wailing and moaning that I've seen online, not from Ryan Hammer, he's been very level-headed about this, but from kind of his fans, is the lack of upsets last year.
Yeah.
2024 was just unprecedented. It was an unprecedented number of upsets. That was like, take NC State out of the equation. There was still an unprecedented amount of upsets that March Madness.
Indeed.
But if we go too far in that direction, I'm sorry. Those mid-major teams are getting fucking hammered in the opening round. Liberty, NC State doubled their ass up this season. NC State won like 92-47.
Yeah.
They doubled up their ass.
Yeah.
No disrespect, but do we realistically need to be talking about letting teams like Tulsa in through an at-large who doesn't even have a quad 1 win? Akron. Okay, Akron might win the MAC, so I'll give them that. Belmont, unless they don't win the Missouri Valley. Like, I'm sorry. If you're outside of the top 40, top 45, you do not need to be getting an at-large bid if you are a mid-major.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect, but it's just going to end up being, you're not even going to be first round fodder. You're not even going to be that guy that
You're
like hits the protagonist on the arm. Yeah, you're going to be first half fodder. You might make it interesting for half a half. But when we've got teams that are sitting around where Providence are in the net, like Wichita State does not need to make it as an at-large. If they win the American, sure. And they're the 2 seed, which they might.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a mid-major with quad, like Power 4 schools, I will let a quad 3 or 4 loss slide if you've got quad 1 wins. Now, I may have it knock you down a seed line. Like if you're a projected 5 seed and you have a quad 4 loss, okay, knock them down to a 6. Or if they're on the bubble, you have a quad 4 loss and it's down between you and a team that doesn't have a quad 4 loss, take the team without the quad 4 loss. But you as a mid-major, and yes, this could sound unfair, but the nature of the conferences you're in, and I get you got to beat who's in front of you, but you don't do that by losing quad 4 games. When I say beat who's in front of you, I mean beat who's in front of you, not lose to them. And as much as I love the Wichita State Shockers, teams like that do not need to be in. And that's no disrespect. Aiden knows I love my mid-majors. There's mid-major conferences that I know way too much about.
Yeah.
Baseball, for me, it's the Big West. Basketball, for me, it's the WCC and the A10.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm impartial to the CAA.
Yeah, the CAA is also great. And like I said, I'm not shitting on these mid-major schools. And I'm not saying they can't compete at a high level. Look at Butler's Cinderella run that one year. That essentially got them into the Big East.
Mm-hmm.
Other teams, Wichita State, they've had good runs.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but they've had good runs. Now, Miami of Ohio, they're 31-0. They're 31-1. Let them in. Like that is an exception here. Unless it is extenuating circumstances like that, like you're like 32-1. And you lost. And at UMass, yeah, but like, you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's extenuating circumstances. Like that obviously that's not going to count. But we don't need to be just, populating the bubble with these mid-major schools. And I think more mid-major schools are able to take it to these Power Four schools more often than not. They're able to give it to them on a given night, but that doesn't mean you need to replace the 8 bubble teams with 8 mid-major teams. Because okay, the first 2 mid-major teams you put in, they might be competitive, but when you get to 6, 7, 8, are those going to be competitive?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. Probably not. It's probably going to be ugly, ugly, ugly. And that's just my 2 cents on that. And I'm not, and I love my mid majors. If we were to, and I'm against tournament expansion, but if we were to expand the tournament, if there was a way to, say, not guarantee, but kind of set those up like, how used to 13s could be an at-large bid, 13 seeds could be like at-large bid still.
Mm-hmm.
You know how kind of once you get to that 12 seed, that's kind of reserved for automatic qualifiers. Like 12 seed, like you're really skirting your way in. But like 13, 14, that's reserved for automatic qualifiers. If there is a way for us to like set those, like the number we're hearing a lot, 72, expanding from 68 to 72. If there was a way to like reserve 2 of those bids for like an at large, like an Indiana State situation. Actually, I have a query. Indiana State 2024. Basketball 2023, 2024. Because I actually think now it could be they were 32-7. That's why they missed. Never mind. They weren't 31-1. So never mind. But if if there was a way, if we expanded to 72 to like set 2 of those aside for like an Indiana State type situation, like a VCU, sure, but I just see those end up being used on SEC teams that don't really deserve to be here. And when I say that, I mean the SEC. It's going to be used on teams like Auburn. It's going to be used on other undeserving teams, and not maybe these, not like Miami, Ohio situation, but like, that Indiana State situation where they really could have taken it to a team. It's just going to go to these undeserving teams, and that's why I'm not a big fan of it. And I'm sure once this season's over and done with, Aiden and I'm sure we could do an episode on like how we would, tweak college basketball. We could do an episode like that. So I think that's all I have for college basketball, unless there's something you want to add. I mean, all I got to add is that Providence this season's finally come to an end, thank God. Kim English is on his way out the door. We'll keep you up to date on coaching hires. I won't get into the speculation too much because nothing's been confirmed. There's been some stuff
happened yet.
Nothing has happened yet. There's a lot of chatter on Twitter, but all I will say is I checked on the other end, and let's just say that the rumors coming out of the Providence side and the Providence Leaks account sound good, but the rumors coming out of good old straight from the mouth of the speaker not sound too hot. But you never know. With that being said, should we jump into the UFC Charles Oliveira fight versus Max Holloway?
Yes. It was another classic, a rendition of the BMF. But before that, let's highlight a couple other fights. Drew DeBoer gets the TKO over Michael Johnson. Gregory Rodriguez gets the TKO over Bruno Ferreira. In fights that we predicted, I went 1 for 2. I got 1 right, 2 wrong. Raul Rojas Jr. gets the unanimous decision over Rob Front. Rojas Jr. looking really good as a prodigy right now. Was able to have a lot of control on the ground, secured 16 out of 18 takedowns, and landed 47 total strikes over Rob Front, who was only able to land 29. This was just domination by Raul Rojas. Uh, in another unanimous decision, we have Chao Brojalo winning over Renier de Ryder in a unanimous decision. Judges scored all three judges scored it 30-27. Um, this was just an absolute slugfest. Brahalo was able to land 71 total strikes, where Renier de Ryder landed 111. But Brahalo landed more significant strikes, especially to the legs, was really devastating with some of his kicks. About even when it came to control time, but both fighters did secure takedowns. Brahalo secured 1 of 1, where Renier de Ryder was just a little bit more inefficient, but secured more with 2 out of 8. Good win for Brahalo. And going into the lightweight main event for the BMF, Charles Oliveira dominates this one, 50-45. All three judges scored it the same. Oliveira surprisingly landed more total strikes and significant strikes, but had absolute domination on control, securing 20 minutes of control on the ground. This fight was 5 rounds, 5 minutes each. The vast majority of this fight, Oliveira was on top of Max Holloway, just absolutely giving it to him. Secured 5 out of 13 takedowns and had 4 submission attempts that didn't go through. But Oliveira's back, in my opinion, after this one. Like, a very impressive win. And I was just not expecting this one. Max Holloway, a really good fighter. He was deserving of the BMF title. But it's in good hands with Oliveira right now. Just an absolute masterclass on his part. Was not expecting this whatsoever. I guess there's still some gas left in the tank for Charles Oliveira right now, but that pretty much sums up my UFC 326 recap of the night.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got this one wrong as well. I mean, when you control that much time, I know you said certain judges are biased to certain styles based off what they know, but I think when you just got that much control time, there's really no other way you can go about it. Like,
Yeah,
it clearly was, a little too much for him, and the aggression worked. That was something where I thought, if Max Holloway just kind of, took a step back, was very calm, calculated about it, but it seems like he was a little too passive. He let a little too much happen. He wasn't decisive enough when he needed to be. So,
credit where credit is due, though. Surviving 4 submission attempts by one of the greatest grapplers in UFC history does not go without notice. I mean, he had some good looks in there, but not a disappointing performance by Max Holloway. Just this night goes to show how impressive Oliveira still is, in my opinion.
yeah. Anything else you want to talk about tonight? There is some big news that just came across my phone that I think is worth mentioning. So, and not to jump back to college basketball, if you're okay. This is actually something that I think is very important. So, for those of you who don't know, the Big 12 was being played on a how would you say it? Type of floor?
Gray.
Holographic.
Yeah.
Holographic floor where they could change the team logo. They could make like custom stuff on there. Really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Objectively. But there's been a lot of complaints. It's been giving players headaches, migraines. The floor is kind of an unnatural color.
Yeah.
You shouldn't complain about that because in the NBA, for like the NBA Cup, there's some. I mean, the fucking Charlotte floor is hideous in the NBA Cup. It's hideous.
Oh, yeah.
I like the normal Charlotte floor with like the bee honeycombs.
Yeah.
That's like normal. That's like normal touch. But like this floor is like gray, and you can't really see a whole lot from what I watched. But news just came across my phone that the Big 12 commissioner announced at 1:00 this morning. It's currently 2 at 1 a.m. in the morning that the Big 12 is transitioning to a hardwood court for the rest of the men's tournament. Amongst the complaints, it's an LED glass floor. Oh, it's made of glass.
Big 12 is just becoming like the new Pac-12 of basketball. Like if you remember old Pac-12, like when it was actually 12 teams, they were always trying new and crazy stuff. Like I always thought the Pac-12 was going to be the first team to try to put a game on the moon or something like that, because that's just how out there they were. But the Big 12, they, hey, credit to them, they have some ideas.
They have some innovators. They're at least trying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but and I feel like that's a interesting development that's happening mid conference tournament. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to add. Um,
In just some recap news, Charlotte Hornets are at number 10 in the Eastern Conference. Had a couple slides this past week, but was able to right the ship, and they're above 500 again at 34 and 33. Um, Brooklyn, Washington, and Indiana have already been eliminated. Sacramento from the West has been eliminated. So it's looking good for the Hornets right now. They play the Spurs this weekend on Amazon Prime.
Hell yeah! At least I can watch it.
Yep. And in NHL news, Hurricanes have been doing well. Suffered a loss to, I believe, the Blues tonight, but still number one in the Metro.
One in the East
At
too.
yeah, uh, sitting at 41, 18, and 6. Hurricanes are looking good right now, and just a good time to be a Carolina sports fan.
It is the Charlotte. The Panthers are looking up. The
We
Panthers
lost
just
Rico
signed.
though.
We lost Rico, but I think for what we were going to have to pay for him, that money could be better spent elsewhere. For what we were going to have to pay for them. Panthers have brought in some good signings. We brought in a new backup quarterback in Kenny Pickett. We picked up a new defensive lineman, or excuse me, we picked up a pass rusher in Jalen Phillips. We picked up a linebacker, Devin Floyd. We're spending a lot of money on the defense this year, which I think is going to be, I think that's going to pay dividends for us. I mean, I would like to see us pick up another pass catcher, but hey, that could be a draft thing.
Yeah.
The Panthers are doing what I wanted them to do in the offseason last year. We're splashing the cash on the defense.
Yep.
You know, I'm glad we're keeping Jalen Coco around. I think he's a good deep threat. Xavier Legette just needs to figure his shit out.
Have we put a franchise tag on Young yet?
We didn't franchise tag him, but I think we're exercising his 5th-year option.
Okay.
Which, funny enough, you have to decide by their 3rd year if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Which I think is the right move. But I do think Bryce does need some competition. I think bringing Kenny Pickett is the right move for that. But I think right now we just need to invest in offensive linemen, defense, and just, the right pieces. Really wish we still had DJ Moore, but
Or you see, here's what I would do. DJ Moore just got traded to the Bills, so thanks, Bears. You used our guy very well, but I'm gonna leave off with a little idea. Charlotte is known for its banking. It's one of the most up and coming banking cities throughout the entirety of the nation, and there so happens to be a quarterback that is really big on LinkedIn, really big into the financial scene. I'm saying, let's start planting stories of Fernando Mendoza and make his draft stock fall. And then we draft him. And we just tell him, hey, listen, if this NFL thing doesn't work out, you're in a good city to build up financially. You have the resume to do it. So that's going to be my crackpot idea for now. But in all likelihood, Mendoza probably going to go to the Raiders. Hope he does well.
I do too. I think it'll be a good experience for him. And they don't plan on starting him right away, so that's a good thing as well.
Yeah. But
Can't think of anything else. There's some soccer things that I want to talk about, but I haven't quite formulated my opinions on them yet. I'll just say this. Aiden and I have talked about on here how football strategy, at least for American football, is very cyclical.
yeah.
2010s and early 2020s, the spread was all the rage. Now we're kind of going back to power, but it's with a spread influence. Last year on the podcast, and you might remember me talking about a certain specific team and how they set up and how they play. And a lot of teams don't like it because it works like a well-oiled machine, but it's a very boring way to watch teams play.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very dominant. And my team, Chelsea, was doing interesting things to stop it by like not having a set defensive rotation, making it very hard. You know what? Fuck it. I'll talk about it tonight. I'll do a quick once over with it. So it was called the offensive philosophy under Pep Guardiola was called positional play.
Mm-hmm.
It was essentially in soccer up until this point recently, Aiden.
Yeah.
Zone defenses were all the rage. And it's very similar to basketball zone defenses where you don't really guard a guy until he comes into your zone.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know about beating zone coverages in football and basketball? How do you beat zones?
You try to just create bad matchups and confuse the defense. Like
put them in conflict.
Yeah.
You put them in conflict or you overload them, which is exactly what positional play is.
Mm-hmm.
Teams have had weird issues on how to stop it. A lot of times teams just park the bus and play everyone on defense and hope to, essentially play transition basketball and soccer. You just pack it in on defense. You try and get them like when they lose the ball or turn it over.
Yeah.
Chelsea did something interesting last season where they didn't have a set defensive rotation, still playing this zonal coverage type of thing. But it confused this positional play because they didn't know what zones to attack because every single possession that teams like Manchester City or Arsenal would have, who also play positional plays, they wouldn't know how to attack it because in soccer, there's tons of formations, but the gist is you either have 3 defenders, 4 defenders, or 5. How do you set up to attack Chelsea when one possession they have 3? The next possession they're playing with 4. Then the next one they're playing with 6 somehow. The next position they're playing with 5. The next they're back to 3. You can't really scheme against that. But the thing is, that's also not that's not sustainable to play defense like that. That can get very confusing and convoluted. So soccer is riding the ship, and a lot of people don't like this positional play because it's a very kind of boring style of build-up. The players don't get to be very creative. They have set roles. They're only allowed to pass at certain places. Like, think of like the complaints you hear these AAU basketball players have about their high school team. They have to run these set plays. There's no room for creativity. They can't really use their instincts. They just have to stick to the plan.
Yeah.
And like certain types of positions and player archetypes are going out of fashion. Like Neymar, he's a winger. Wingers were going out of fashion because wingers weren't allowed to be creative and take risks anymore. They were just told, nope, you're going to turn around and pass the ball back and cycle it through. And we're going to break a team down like you break down a 3-2 zone. You just pass the ball until you find the hole in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
But a savior's come out. A thing that positional play really struggles with. Man-to-man. Soccer, for the first time since the 1940s, teams are starting to play man-to-man marking. And I know that sounds like big whoop, but the thing is, Aiden, no one has played man-to-man marking since the 1940s. And teams are bringing it back. The cycle is coming back. Positional play can't break it down because if you're just saying, listen, you're responsible for this motherfucker no matter where he goes, there's no zones to attack.
Yeah.
And it's been causing these teams fits. And what does it cause? These teams are having to go back to these old, 2000s, 2010 style soccer offenses where there's creativity again. There's people playing like Neymar. There's people playing like these crazy wingers we grew up with, these very talented, creative, these creative midfielders who have this beautiful passing ability. They can try these difficult passes, these long passes, long shots. That that TikTok I sent you right before you gave it up for Lent, like where it's the AI voice going, "Where the fuck is the long shot gone?" Guess what?
Yes.
It's back because when you're being man marked, you beat your man by shooting, passing, or dribbling around him, and creativity is coming. Like we had all these complaints that creativity in soccer is gone. It's coming back. Teams are playing man coverage again. Now this is good. Defenses are about to get absolutely cooked because unlike basketball and football, because you can't put your hands on the guy, man coverage is not very effective. But it's effective at stopping the meta right now. For those who don't know what that means, the meta is like kind of it's a video game term where it's like if when a strategy becomes really successful and everyone switches to it.
Yeah.
Positional play has been the meta for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Man-to-man defense in soccer is not effective, but it is effective against positional play. And funny enough, man-to-man defense in soccer came about in the 1940s because teams were playing like they are now.
Yeah.
Cyclical. And I'm sure in basketball, we're going to see it again. We're going through this revolution of what they call essentially basketball's version of the spread offense, where you have one big man and 4 guards. But eventually, that bubble's going to pop. Eventually, there's going to be some team that's going to get 3 big motherfuckers. You're going to have your center, your power forward, your small forward back, and we're going to go back to that Big E style of play. So I guess what I'm saying, I didn't have it. And there wasn't many topics tonight, so I guess I'm not trying to fill dead air, but you get what I'm saying. This is some research I've been doing lately for this podcast that I felt like I'd just share.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone fretting the days of the post ups and this big smash rough and tumble basketball being gone, it may take a while, but hey, soccer's going back to its roots. That made it fun.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball could be going back that way too, so no need to fret.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, is this analytics-based basketball not fun to watch? But I watched a video by our friend Matt McKelvey again, who's really deep diving into the analytics. And I'll leave you guys with this. At least in the NBA right now, the analytics aren't saying to take 3s anymore.
Yeah.
The analytics are saying take 2s. Because defense have now gotten so light. The teams haven't switched to it. But the analytics are saying that these teams with these big guys like Luka, I know he's a shorter guy, but he's stronger. Jokic, he's having a career year in post-up when it comes to just post-ups and just kind of mano-a-mano stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought I've been trying to get into the more of the strategy and like the analytics of sports. So this was just something interesting I thought I'd share that reminded me of the research I've been doing on soccer lately.
Yeah.
So if you're worried and college basketball for some of you old heads is becoming unwatchable because it's just there's no big men and it's just screen contested 3.
Mm-hmm.
The ship will right itself. The ship will right itself.
Indubitably.
But no, I'm sure that's all I have for tonight. I'm sure as we get closer to the World Cup, as these playoff games to determine the last couple teams to make the World Cup, like I think the last 10 or so, most of the groups are already set, but the U.S. gets to find out who they're getting in their group. In addition to Australia and Iran, possibly. I'm blanking on our group. But unfortunately, we didn't get the geopolitical nightmare group that Aiden and I were rooting on. That would have truly been funny.
Yeah.
So get standings. Yeah, the U.S. Group D, Paraguay, Australia. The U.S. gets to find out. I think worst case scenario we get like Scotland, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You got anything else to add, Aiden?
Nope.
All right. With that being said, I think that'll do it for us here. Next week we will have bracket breakdown for you.
Yes.
We will have our bracket. We will have our predictions. We will have everything. So we really appreciate you guys listening in, and we will see you guys next week.